We're back. We're here this week on Jaywalking. I'm back in studio. I got so much to share, so much to talk about. Life's changed in the new year for me. We've got a lot of fun things going on. We're going to talk about the upcoming season of Jaywalking, and I'm so glad you're here taking the walk with us. Enjoy the episode. Share, like, subscribe. I'll talk to you soon. And we're back. It has been a while. How have you been? Tell me all about it. I'm listening. Go ahead. No, I'm excited to be back. Jaywalking. I'm actually in the King of Prussia studios with Simmons Media. I'm super excited. But yeah, we're back in action. It's been a little bit. It's been before the holidays. Had a lot happen, so I figured we'd chat and catch up today. I think it was even before Thanksgiving because we had gone away on a cruise, and then my in-laws took us to Puerto Rico for like 9 days over Christmas. We saw 17 Bad Bunny concerts. It was great. I loved every minute of it. Actually, the thing I found most interesting about Puerto Rico is there were parts of it that felt like it was still in a time capsule. Like they had a Ponderosa and a Sizzler. I was like, oh, well, let's drive 3 more blocks. We are going to find a Blockbuster and a Radio Shack, no doubt. But it was amazing just how Church's Chicken was big there, and then all the typical Wendy's and but no, we enjoyed our time there. It was a lot of fun. And the kids, my daughter, my Katie, the other day I was putting her to bed, and she said to me, she's like, Daddy, I'm the luckiest girl in my class. And I'm thinking she must be like teacher's pet, or she gets to like do something. And she's like, because you take us all around the world. And I was like, oh my God, okay. You can have a car, you can have whatever you want. You want to stay up till 4 a.m. and go get ice cream? Yeah, whatever you need, baby. That's fine by me. No, so we've had a great run over the holidays. So we're just super busy. And then I announced my retirement from teaching. So I'm no longer a public school teacher as of January 20th. So it's a big switch. I know a lot of people were curious about that. And it was just time. It was, I'd been there for half of my life. I walked into that district when I was 21 and in college, and now I'm 42, and it was time. I was getting a lot of great opportunities to go tell my story and speak to educators around the country, and I get to tell jokes at night with the Board Teachers Comedy Tour, and, I'm running a couple comedy schools, and so just so much happening that it was just time. It was a good run. And I think we all learned after COVID, me personally, like I had to kind of set boundaries. I had to like make sure I'm filling my own cup up with something that brings me joy. I used to mentor these like TED Ed clubs at school. That was like one of my favorite after school activities to do. And whenever you would have like the whole goal of the club was to have kids prep their own TED Talk. And so one of the things they tell you to do when you're brainstorming what you're going to talk about is to do what makes your heart sing. That's sort of the mantra of TED, is spreading ideas worth sharing. And usually it's things that you're super passionate about. I remember my first episode of Jaywalking, I talked about just this concept of like following the tuning fork. And that's really what I'm just trying to do. And it was a time where I wanted to stay. I wanted to keep trying to teach and do both worlds. But it required me to take a couple of days off here and there, and I didn't want to pretend I was sick. I was just raised to have integrity. But unfortunately, when you tell that out loud to your boss, they say, well, we can't just not pay you, which is unfortunate because that's what I asked. I said, hey, just don't pay me for 6 days. Let me go do my thing, and I'll leave some sub plans. Everything will be fine. And that way I can kind of navigate both worlds. And it was the push I needed to just say, you know what? It's unfortunate they wouldn't bend that way, and I didn't want to lie and pretend I was sick. So it just happened a little earlier than I expected. But very grateful, very grateful. It's been a month now, and I'm thinking about I don't know how I did this while teaching. It's funny how just all of the little things, and now getting to be more present at home in the morning with the girls, and I'm not worried about my own lesson plans and my own lunch, and I can just be dad for them, and I can just get them ready and yell about their hair instead of worrying about washing my hair. And so I'm enjoying that aspect of it. And I get to be creative. I actually worked as a consultant for a landscaping company to help them produce funny commercials. So I kind of got to write and be creative about how to make 30-second commercials. I'm working for a company called Angel Sense that my daughter uses for her watch, and they're actually giving us a free subscription and then some money for collaborating on reels on how our family uses it. So just all these cool things. And I was always doing that with education because, if you're an educator, you're a teacher, there's always ways you can make some extra money, right? Sometimes if the club you're running is big enough, there's a stipend. Or if you're a coach like I was for baseball, basketball, and football, there's a stipend. Saturday detention, after school detention, SATs, like there's all these ways to make extra money. But comparatively speaking, if I were to do like 3 hours of Saturday detention, like the money I would get for that versus what they would pay me for like 10 to 15 minutes on stage, it's almost like, wow, like I don't know if that's more an issue of our entertainment business or our educational system. I'm going with the latter. I can't imagine, what they compensate teachers. Like I would know exactly what I was going to make to the dime until the day I died if I stayed in that classroom, no matter how much effort I put in, right? Whether good or bad, same money. And so that's like a hard pill to swallow, I think, because I'm an ambitious guy, like I'm a hustler. So when I'm seeing all of the dividends pay off in the comedy world and in the speaking world for just being able to be ambitious and share my story and be creative. I mean, schools often say they want creativity, right? But what I've found to be the truth is when they say be creative, they're like, why don't you jazz up the border on your worksheet? Why don't you play with your Google Classroom decor? They're not really talking about innovating, right? Because that would cost money. That would require them to do things that are outside the scope of what they're comfortable with. And, you can't really, it's a slow moving wave, education. If you look at, there's a video out there, and I don't know who does it, but they basically followed the car industry, medicine, and education. And it's sort of a snapshot through the years. And I'll give you 3 guesses, which was the field of the 3 that changed the least in the montage they did of over like 100 years. So, it's sort of part of the system. I get it. And in order for things to change, the leadership you have to have at the top has to be like top-notch leadership. We're not just talking about someone who's doing a job because they like the pay and they work their way up the ladder and they're just trying to retire, and there's a lot of those, and that's fine, but that person's not going to change anything in education. They're just going to keep it status quo. And when you're ambitious, you want to be around other people who are ambitious. And I found within the entertainment community, within the speaking community, it's all about ambition and pushing the next level. So I feel like I have a wider impact to kind of go around to schools and teachers and just share my experiences, 21 years in education as a teacher, or the fact that I was a student who went to 7 different schools, public, private, Catholic, having a non-traditional family, just all of these things that make me who I am just are just, it's just too much to not share with people. And so now I'm getting the opportunity. I just did a keynote for POSAP, which is the Pennsylvania Association of Student Assistant Professionals. And so that's basically legalese for your social workers, your counselors, your therapists, your administrators, nurses, teachers, anybody who becomes part of like a crisis response team or a child study team. So kids who are dealing with factors outside of the curriculum, right? Maybe something in their family's going on, their parents are in and out of jail, they're in and out of juvie, they're on probation, they have drug issues and in and out of rehab, homelessness. I mean, you name it, it could be a number of things. And they deal with some really serious topics. And so I got to speak to them about me, and they basically got to see me in kind of 3 facets: as a kid who needed those services, right? As a kid who found adults who were kind of guardrails for him in the way that they are guardrails for the students in their building. And then how all of those moments led to me becoming an educator and then being able to share, sort of seeing both sides of the equation now, and how I've been able to become the teacher I needed when I was in school. When I left, I got a note from a student. I really didn't expect much. Like when I announced that I was resigning, or retiring or whatever you want to call it. Like nobody from the building contacted me except HR to be like, hey, here's an exit checklist. I know you've been here half your life in 21 years, but all we got is a checklist for turning your keys in. And that's fine, whatever. But it did hurt a little bit because I've dedicated my life to that place. But I just didn't anticipate after that anybody caring or doing whatever. And my wife set up a beautiful kind of surprise party where people came out to Soul Joel's, and it was very nice to see people from who had retired and came back. And then student-wise, I kind of didn't know how they were feeling about it. I mean, I only had these students for half a year, and you kind of felt like I didn't connect maybe I felt like I didn't connect as much, or I felt guilty because I was leaving them, sort of like a divorced dad situation. Like, I'll see you in the Giant parking lot every other weekend when we swap custody. Like, I just felt like it was like I was ending this toxic relationship. And I was like, listen, everybody's like, you got to leave. And I'm like, yeah, but we have kids. So I didn't anticipate much, but then I got a note from a girl who had been in my 8th grade Latin class. And I guess I just didn't see it coming in terms of what she sent me. And it was really beautiful. So I'm going to see if I can read that. So I just didn't anticipate anybody sort of saying anything. And this girl in my 8th grade class brought me like a bunch of stuff, a bouquet of Kit Kats, because over Halloween I brought candy in and it said Kit Kats were my favorite. And so she wrote me this note and said, to Mr. Yoder, and it was like handwritten. And I don't know, you guys can't see it really good, but she like highlighted like colors in here. She like put all this effort into it. It was very adorable. And I said, just in case you didn't know, ... You're my favorite teacher, the one who brings a smile to my day, the one who believes in me no matter what, the teacher I chose to share my true self with because I feel safe and understood, the one who inspires me. You're special, one of a kind, the teacher I'll remember for the rest of my life. Thank you for everything. And I think the line that it was so adorable, obviously, and I've read it a million times, so, but it still hits me every time. I think the part was like, I chose to share my true self with you because I feel safe and understood. And, I don't know that I ever felt safe like that with a teacher. I mean, I had some great teachers, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that even I had the words in 8th grade to write that note. And I think if you're a teacher right now, I'm not flexing on you. I'm saying you're that for some kid right now. They just don't have the language to write that note, right? You may never get that letter, but you're still having that impact. And that's sort of the message that I'm trying to take around with me as I talk to other teachers and, people in education, is that, if you lose your confidence for a second, or you lose sort of your worth, borrow mine. Let's borrow mine, because you got to find a way to fill your cup up so that you can be that teacher for someone, because right now you're becoming that person someone's going to remember for the rest of their lives, and you have a choice. I mean, I had some teachers who I remember, but maybe not for the right reasons. I was talking about my kindergarten teacher. It was in the city of Scranton, and she was married to the mayor of Scranton, and I have a sneaking suspicion that she desired to be married to the mayor of a richer city. Like, maybe not a coal town, but maybe more pressure where it became a diamond. And she would get a driver to bring her in every day, and she'd have fancy fur coats on. And, she did not want to be teaching 6-year-olds. Meanwhile, I'm over here holding a broken crayon, just trying to survive, and girlfriend's rolling in from Saks Fifth Avenue. And I just remember I had an alphabet book. We were making alphabet books. A is for apple, B is for ball. And we had laid out all the R for rabbit ones. And I'll never forget this, because she grabbed one. She held it up in front of everybody. And she's like, whose is this? And she just had this voice of disgust and tone in her that just shot fear into me as I realized, oh, that was mine. I mean, I could see, I was 6, all right? Yeah, clearly I had violated the boundaries of that rabbit with my brown crayon, but at the same time, I was 6. Teachers have the power to humor or humiliate, and she chose to humiliate, and I chose to take the higher road. I decided in that moment to do something, a very adult thing to do, I think, at my age, which was plead the fifth. Yeah, there is no R in my alphabet book. My mom still has it. because apparently the R stood for redacted. So, yeah, my alphabet book doesn't, but I just remember that moment, or a moment that didn't happen to me in first grade. I was at a Catholic school this time. We had switched, and it was Sister Doreen, I believe, and there was a student in the class. His name was John. I'm not going to say his last name, but John. And John had an accent. He had wet himself, and she decided to make him stand in front of the classroom, in front of everybody, and he was like crying, and like, it's like this punishment or this guilt thing until his mom could bring him new pants. And I'm just like, wow, like, I mean, St. Mary's of Dunmore became St. Bullies of Guantanamo Bay real fast. And it's just like, again, we can humiliate. It's like the Billy Madison line, like that kid pees his pants, and so then like Adam Sandler like pours water on himself, and they sing a song about everybody. It's cool to pee your pants. Now, she didn't need to do that, but she certainly could have, ushered him out quietly, got him to the nurse, and like had him kind of chilled there until his mom, and she chose not to do that. And I'll remember her. And if I remember that, what do you think John remembers of that moment? So these are the kind of moments but I had great teachers. Like in third grade, I had this teacher, Mrs. Uteg, and I talk about her all the time, and I can't find her. So if anybody out there knows of Mrs. Uteg, who taught at St. Rose in Carbondale, I'm guessing circa 1992, 1993, I am dying to just, I don't even know if that's, just talking about that note, like, I don't think she realizes, like, I go around and talk about her to teachers all over the country, and she's part of a couple of my talks, and I don't think she has any idea that she ever played such a role in my life like that. And that's the thing I'm talking about. I think there are so many times in education, we don't get that. In comedy, I can get a laugh every 10 to 15 seconds to show my work of, what I'm doing. But, with teaching, oftentimes it's not as reciprocal. You may never get the laugh, even if the laugh will occur. They're not going to mail you it like 15 years later. Sometimes you can reconnect through social media, and that's great. But I think a lot of times, teachers don't get to know the impact that they have on kids. And, I'm sure Mrs. Uteg doesn't realize she had that impact. I was talking a little bit about how I'd, gone to so many schools, and I switched to this prep school when I was a junior because my Catholic school was shutting down, and the public school, the Catholic school was too small, the public school was too big, and came with the side of drugs and violence. And then the prep school, Wyoming Sem, was just right out of our price range. I mean, it was expensive, but we got grant money and scholarship money, but they almost didn't let me in because my PSAT scores were so low. And I had to explain to the guy, was Mr. Granger at the time, was the dean of admissions, and he, had some apprehension about if I'd do well there. And I had to explain to him that the school I was at did block scheduling, but in their infinite wisdom, they put math, which was geometry in 10th grade, in the spring, but PSATs are in the fall. So we hadn't had a third of the material that was covered in it. And so I got them to do a probationary period, and he actually became my social studies teacher. And I had always done really well in history in my old school because if you wrote a lot, he would just I think he just gave up reading it and was just like, all right, fine, you win. You wrote a bunch of stuff, check plus. But Mr. Granger wasn't like that. Yeah, he told me to take the quiz, even though I hadn't been there long, just to get a baseline. And I'll never forget the question. We had an essay question, so you had to write in this blue book. And it said, was Andrew Jackson a pragmatic president? And I'm just like, who and what for 500, Alex? Like, I don't even know. I barely knew who Andrew Jackson was. I didn't know what pragmatic meant at the time. And so I just did what I always do, just write. And so I'm waiting to get back. Listen, I'm used to getting all 99s in my life. And that may not sound impressive, but at the Catholic school I went to, only God gets 100. So 99 was the highest grade you could get. And so I waited for it. And the next week or whatever, he turns back the essays and he slams down the blue book on my desk in front of everybody. And it had a number I'd never seen on a test for me before, which was like a 49. And he looked at me and he said, son, do you know what a thesis is? And at first, I just thought that might have been Andrew Jackson's vice president, but it wasn't. I had no idea what a thesis was. And that's sort of the culture shock when I was like, oh, I got to lock in. Like, this school is different. I mean, they don't have a building. They had a campus. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even have a principal. They had what they called a president. They didn't have students. They had rich trust fund babies. I mean, these kids had yachts and college funds. I had an old Huffy and a Coinstar jar. Like, we were not the same. And so I had to really adjust quickly. And I found a teacher there, Mr. Harvey, who was a math teacher. And that's, where I was realizing I was really deficient. So I was spending extra time in his room. And he was, very nice. He spoke to me very plainly. He was just like a guardrail guy I needed at my life at that time because so much emotion, so much going on, so much change in my life. And he just spoke to me plainly. We just focused on the problem. He didn't let me spiral. He didn't let me build things up bigger than they were. And I needed that. I needed someone who wasn't going to let me do all of that. He was actually my bank password for the longest time. Like, they ask you the security questions because I needed him at that moment. I don't know if he even realizes how much he was to me in that moment. I don't know that I ever, like I said, I don't know that I ever had the words like Aaron did to say that, but it made me think like, wow, like so grateful for him at that time, because that's when I started tutoring kids after a while in his classroom. I started all of a sudden kind of planting the seeds of like, oh, I could do education, I could teach, and so those were kind of like huge influences in my life. So it was fun kind of thinking about them over the last couple of weeks as I was preparing this talk I gave last Sunday. And so I'm sure we all have teachers out there like that. So if you're still in touch with them or you find them on Facebook, shoot them a message. Let them know. Because I mean, every time I read that message from Aaron, I've been taking it on stage a lot and writing some jokes and playing with it a little bit, but very heartfelt stuff too. So I really enjoy. Just kind of nice to know you're valued, And so I don't know that I miss the teaching aspect of it. I really enjoy having the time. I really enjoy the freedom. I really enjoy the creativity. I found this new avenue, like where I'm just more engaged with my daughters. And so they're in a bunch of activities. So like, both of them do cheerleading, and my one has been doing more like competition style cheer, but in the range of like, she's a special needs team. So they call it cheer abilities. And she's really good with pattern recognition, and she's really good. She just could, she just wouldn't be able to, be on a regular squad, I think, not without some like serious help with an AB aid or something. But with the cheerability squad, she just fits right in. She's, she does the cheer. She knows the dances really well. And we get to go to all these competitions. And I took her, just me, to globals in Charlotte, or not globals, nationals for Pop Warner. We're doing globals this weekend in Atlantic City. And so it's been kind of fun. I started making videos whenever I would like drop her off and I couldn't go with her anymore. So like when it's time for them to go before they perform, they go warm up, but parents can't go with them. I tried to go with her because I always go with her wherever she is. And I tried to get on the elevator thinking, oh, I'm going with her. And the one woman's like, athletes only, sir. And I'm like, 3-time JV All-Star. What are you talking about, athletes only? But I got this extra free time, so I started making videos about all the things I was noticing at the convention, and it started resonating with a lot of people out there. So it's been kind of fun to be America's new cheer dad. So on social media, I've been doing a lot of cheer dad stuff with Alicia and Katie and having a lot of fun with that. We actually visited some conventions or some competitions recently, and it was fun to see other moms come up to me and be like, oh, I know you from TikTok, or some dads even, and we took some selfies and hung out. Snooki even like commented on a couple of my videos on TikTok about if cheer parents tailgate beforehand. She's like, yeah, we're out here. I'm like, I know you are, girl. That would be so, I'm a huge Jersey Shore fan. Like, so I was fangirling out over hardcore there. But it's just been fun to do more creative things and just, again, bring a little levity. A good buddy of mine, Chip Chantry, who's a very, very good comedian, really good writer. We've done some workshops together where we teach teachers and just, even not even just teachers, but like businesses, when they want to do something different for their business, we teach like a stand-up on how to bring levity into the staff room, or if you're a teacher, into the classroom. And he does a big talk on what levity is, and that the ability to kind of lighten the load a little bit, take the seriousness down a little bit. And with schools, it helps with like de-escalation tactics, so that you're not pushing the big red button and the kid's going to snap. We want to get to a level where, we don't want to be like Sister Doreen. We don't want to be like those teachers who are like humiliating. Because if you humiliate, right, how can we humor? And so that's sort of the angle of the talk, but it's been really fun to sort of explore some of that. And the comedy schools, I run a comedy school at Soul Joel's in Pottstown for all levels. I mean, from people who just said, wouldn't it be fun, to people who are just looking to get booked more and actually, do some paid gigs. And so it's been a really fun thing. We have a new one coming up March 11th. I think we still have some spots left. So souljoels.com if you're interested. I think you would enjoy it. We have a lot of great time. So yeah, March 11th, we start our next session. Basically, it's like 6 weeks. And you get like a 3-hour class with me. And I bring in guest sort of comedians from, pro level comics to also give some feedback. And it's just cool to watch a room full of like strangers from all walks of life kind of become friends in 6 weeks. And I think as adults, sometimes we don't realize we're allowed to have hobbies. We're allowed to make new friends. And so I think for a lot of people, it provides that. And then, you get to make people laugh. What's the harm in that? Go to some open mics, crack some jokes, have some fun. If it turns into more than that, well, hey, then that's what it did for me. So if I could do that for someone else, I mean, that's why I got into education. I got into education because it allowed me a different life. It allowed me to get out of my area. And if I saw somebody who wanted knowledge but didn't have it, then I was obligated to reach back and pull you up the mountain, right? That's what I was doing in Mr. Harvey's classroom when I started tutoring. I was like, oh, I actually know what that kid's talking about. Let me lean over and explain it to him real quick. So it's I just always had that nature. I think that was the teacher in me. And so, okay, I spent 21 years teaching Spanish and Latin. Maybe I'm going to spend the next 21 years teaching comedy and teaching people to take care of themselves and spread that kind of joy and live joyfully, and that's, I spent my time lighting myself on fire to keep everybody warm during COVID. And now it's time for me to take care of me. And that's what the big push was for me. It was, I want to do these things that I'm proud of. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good son. I want to be a good human. I took a class at Ursinus where everybody had to take it. It was called the Common Intellectual Experience. I think I've talked about it before. And you would read literature from the beginning of time through modern era. John Locke, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, New Testament, whatever. And then every time you read something, and every teacher had to teach it and every student had to take it. And it was like this eye-opening experience because when you read these books or from these perspectives, you had to answer questions like, what does it mean to be human? What is our role in the universe? What does it mean to be good? And, when you have these lenses of people from different walks of life, I'm in a room with people from different religions. I mean, I knew people. I had Jewish girlfriends, and I lived in a Jewish neighborhood growing up. But I'd never met anybody who was like celebrated, was Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism. And to kind of be in this area where you're with people who are Muslims or people who are Buddhists, that was incredible to me. So it was very eye-opening because it just wasn't around. I just wasn't around. It was just a product of geographically where I was. And having a biology teacher teach it and then a philosophy teacher teach it, and just the perspective was really interesting. And so like those kind of things now where I think about the way where we are in the world, like last night was the State of the Union. And, if you scrolled Facebook, you would see our union is quite divided. I feel like this guy, Trump, is like the best optical illusion poster. Do you ever see those optical illusion posters where like you look at it and some people see an old lady and some see a young woman? That's what I feel like he is. Like people watched that talk last night. And if I looked at my Facebook feed, like some people were seeing green dress, some people were seeing red dress, some people were seeing duck, some people were seeing rabbit. And I just find that fascinating. I've always considered myself in the middle of things. Like I was raised by a family that was mostly gay and lesbian, but I wasn't. So like I'm always used to seeing things from another side. So I would see people talk about why they thought that was a bad thing. And then I lived with people and loved people who that was their life. So I feel like I've always been looking at things from the middle of the road and like watching both sides. So I feel that same way about politics, like, oh, Democrat, Republican. And I think I'm registered as like a independent or something. So I felt like always in the middle of things and just kind of wanting to understand what both sides mean and what their intentions are. So I'm always kind of looking at it, but I feel like Trump's just like one of these optical illusions where some people see this, some people see that, or the Yanni or whatever. There was that sound bite that certain people heard this versus that. And I think it's just a matter of perspective. And it's like it's either like you like the bluntness, it's like either a bluntness or middle school bully with Wi-Fi. Like there's just these two pieces where, I think it's hysterical, but it's also, it can be very upsetting. And I can see the people that get really, there's just so much to dig into there that I hope we're going to dig out of it all right. I just know that when I interact with people and we're not talking about politics, then, I can see the beauty in humanity. But when we choose to pick sides and we choose to go West Side Story, well, yeah, you're going to polarize. You're going to create some rifts. You're going to create some anger. So I hope we can all just figure out a way to get through this hump and onto more positive things that just, the things that really benefit us and the things that we really can focus our energy on. Like, for example, Starbucks. One of the things I've realized, I've been doing a lot more dates with the board teachers, and Devin Siebold, I have to thank for this because he's a big Starbucks guy, and I never really was, and now I get it. It's very expensive, so I only like to drink it on tour when maybe they're paying for it. But I get Starbucks now. I didn't realize that. A little latte. This is a pistachio latte. I'm slowly becoming a Karen, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to complain to the manager. But, I've been enjoying finer things in life myself now, which is nice. I'm actually going to Alaska with the family. I got into the Before You Die Alaska Comedy Festival, and I get to take the family with me because it's over their spring break. So I got a lot of cool things happening. I'm going to be bringing some guests on. We got a lot of things going on, but I just wanted to kind of recap, get back in action, talk a little bit about what's been going on in my life. And if you're a cheer parent, I'm excited to have you here. We're going to be bringing on some cheer parents and talking about cheerleading and, just jaywalking, just life unfiltered, just talking about maybe doing a news segment, just have some fun. So I'm excited to be back. I'm excited you're here. Keep listening, share with a friend, like, comment, engage. It's super helpful. It lets me know if I should keep doing it and what I should talk about. So we'll try some different things, and I'm so grateful to have you jaywalking with me. So I'll see you next week.